All right, let's jump right in. We're about to travel back to the 19th century to uncover this incredible, almost lost story about where computer programming actually came from. And trust me, it's a wild tale of genius, giant brass machines, and a vision that was literally 100 years ahead of its time.
So, our story kicks off with a moment of pure, unadulterated rage. It's 1821, and a man named Charles Babbage slams a book on his desk and shouts this very phrase. So who is this guy, and what could possibly make a brilliant mathematician so angry?
Well, that book was a nautical almanac. It was filled with mathematical tables that sailors used to navigate ships. And it was an absolute mess, just riddled with mistakes. In this great age of steam and steel, the modern world was basically running on bad data. And these weren't just typos, A wrong number could send a ship crashing into rocks. These were life-or-death errors.
Babbage became completely obsessed with this. He saw that the whole system depended on people, called computers, doing these mind-numbing calculations all day long. And people get tired, they get bored, they make mistakes. This one problem, this frustration, would spark one of the most revolutionary ideas in history.
Just to give you a sense of how bad it was, get this. In just 2 hours of checking the official tables, Babbage found 17 different errors. 17. He realized the system wasn't just a little flawed, it was fundamentally broken.
And that's when he had this light bulb moment, the question that would drive the rest of his life. What if you could just take the fallible human out of the equation entirely? What if you could build a machine that was the math?
His answer was the difference engine, an unbelievable, beautiful, intricate machine of brass gears and steel rods, all designed to do one thing and one thing only: calculate mathematical tables perfectly, every single time. But here's the thing. Babbage's vision was still incomplete, and its true mind-blowing potential would be unlocked by someone totally unexpected.
Yeah, the person who would truly understand his creation wasn't another engineer. It was the daughter of England's most famous, most scandalous poet, a young woman who was deliberately raised to be the exact opposite of her father.
Meet Ada Byron. On one side, you have her dad, Lord Byron, the original rock star poet, all passion, imagination, and chaos. On the other, her mother, Annabella, a brilliant mathematician who called herself the Princess of Parallelograms. She was all about reason, logic, and strict discipline. Annabella was so terrified Ada would inherit her father's poetic madness that she put her on a strict diet of math and science from a young age.
But you can't just stamp out half of who someone is, right? Her mother's plan both worked and kind of spectacularly backfired, because instead of choosing math over poetry, Ada's incredible mind fused them. She learned to apply her father's wild imagination to her mother's rigid logic.
And she even had a name for it. She called it Poetical Science. It was this unique ability to see the beauty and the creativity inside the logic, to find the hidden connections that no one else could, not even Babbage.
So picture this. The year is 1833. A 17-year-old Ada is at one of Babbage's famous London parties. And in the middle of the room is a small, working model of his magnificent difference engine, clicking and whirring away.
Now, most people saw a fascinating toy, a clever piece of clockwork. But Ada, she saw the soul of the machine. She instantly grasped the grand idea that Babbage had taken abstract math and made it physical. Babbage was just stunned. He'd finally met someone who got it. He'd found his intellectual soulmate.
So he told her about his next, even crazier idea, an idea for a machine called the Analytical Engine. This wasn't just a calculator for one type of problem. Oh no, this was a true general-purpose machine. A machine you could give instructions to solve any problem. A programmable computer. So, fast forward a few years, Ada, now Ada Lovelace, is asked to translate an Italian engineer's article about the Analytical Engine. And she thinks, okay, I can do more than just translate this. She saw her chance to add her own thoughts to explain to the world what this machine really was.
So, how in the world do you program a mechanical computer in the 1840s? Well, the inspiration came from a totally different field, the textile industry. There was a device called the Jacquard loom that used cards with holes punched in them to tell the loom which threads to lift, automatically weave incredibly complex patterns. Babbage and Lovelace realized you could do the exact same thing for math. The holes could represent instructions.
And this is where Ada comes up with this just perfect metaphor. She saw that the engine wasn't just crunching numbers. It was creating something. It was weaving logic itself into beautiful, complex new forms. I mean, how amazing is that?
So her translator's notes ended up being 3 times longer than the original article. And in one section, which she called Note G, she wrote out step by step the first ever published computer program. It was an algorithm to calculate a complex sequence called Bernoulli numbers. It had loops, it had branching, everything we think of as programming. And this is my favorite part, for all the developers watching, it had a mistake. The world's first computer program contained the world's first bug. Some things really never change.
But this is where she made the great leap that even Babbage hadn't quite seen. She realized the machine didn't care what the symbols meant. They didn't have to be numbers. They could represent musical notes or letters or anything. She predicted that a machine like this could compose music. She was essentially describing digital media in 1843. It's just mind-bending.
And yet, she also saw a limit, a really important one. She argued that the machine can only do what we tell it to do. It can follow orders, but it can't come up with new ideas on its own. It has no creativity. This idea became known as Lady Lovelace's objection, and it is still right at the center of today's debates about artificial intelligence.
And now for the tragic part of the story. Babbage never got the funding to build his analytical engine, and Ada died tragically young at just 36. And their brilliant work, it was just forgotten. For nearly 100 years, they were basically a footnote in history. Just look at this timeline. 1843, she publishes her work. 1852, she dies. And then nothing. It wasn't until the 1940s, when the first electronic computers were being built, that historians looked back and were absolutely floored. They found that Babbage and Lovelace had already laid out all the core concepts a century earlier. Eventually, she got the recognition she deserved. In 1979, the U.S. Department of Defense named a powerful new programming language, Ada, in her honor.
And this isn't just a historical footnote. It's a living legacy. The Ada language is used today in systems that absolutely, positively cannot fail. We're talking about spacecraft, banking systems, air traffic control. Her vision of a precise, reliable, and logical way of instructing machines is still keeping us safe today. Which brings us right back to her profound question. Today, we see AI creating art, writing poetry, composing music that feels genuinely original. So we have to ask ourselves, was she right? Is the machine just weaving incredibly complex patterns based on what we've fed it? Or has it finally learned to originate something new? The debate that Ada Lovelace started almost 200 years ago is more relevant right now than it has ever been.